I think culture is very important. And I say people and culture. Choosing the people is the most important thing when it comes to a company in HR because your people are your workforce. A lot of times the company is just focused on making money, 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 money. We're going to do this and this, make this much money. Or I don't want to spend $2,000 on a pool table. I don't want to give my employees 3 weeks off of PTO because that costs me money and I need my employees to work. But people that companies don't realize is that onboarding itself and hiring is very, very, very expensive. Whether you're paying someone on your staff full time or you're paying someone else to do it, thousands and thousands of dollars are spent on employees. And if you're only showing your best self for the 90 days, you're paying that same. Sometimes it takes $20,000 almost to find one specific employee. And if you lose them after those 90 days, then you have another $20,000 and another $20,000. So that's why I think people and culture are the most important aspect of a company because you need your employees there. You need them to be loyal. You want them to be there for a long time and feel happy coming to work. I always said if I ever owned a company and someone wasn't happy coming to work, that's a reflection on me. I'm doing something wrong. My company's doing something wrong. What can I do to try to convince you to stay or help you stay? Am I not paying fairly? Am I not giving enough paid time off? What am I doing wrong?
Welcome to Built by People Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Daria Rudnik, and this show is for HR and L&D leaders, those building real impact from within and shaping AI-ready organizations. Each episode, I sit down with people and business leaders to talk about how they build strong cultures and shape organizations around them. It's about HR being seen as a true business partner by leaders and by HR themselves. So let's dive in. And today I have a very amazing guest, Nate Hill. He's an HR professional with many years of experience in employee relations and culture, most of it spent inside organizations that were scaling fast or quietly falling apart. He has built people functions from scratch, navigated leadership transitions, and sat in the rooms where a culture either halts or breaks down. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you so much, Daria. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I have so many questions for you, but my first question would be what is the 91st day concept?
A very good question. What is the 91st day concept? So basically the 91st day concept is if anyone who has started a new job, they know that they have this 90-day probationary period where it's like you have 90 days to show us that we made the right decision to hire you and that the best decision we've ever made was hiring you. And then after 90 days, we're going to tell you how well you did. And if you do great, you'll move on. If you don't, then you can terminate you or something like that. A lot of times people do make it past that 90 days, but then they completely are left off. So they're forgotten about. They're like, okay, we don't need to impress him anymore. He's here or she's here. We don't need to do anything like that anymore. He's on his own. He's done everything he possibly could. So good luck. I'll be over here. And oftentimes that I've noticed is that the culture stops at that 90 days. So the amazing time, all that effort and money that companies have put into these new employees and onboarding them are completely cut off at the end. Now what is the question? So I always say continue it with the 91st day. Just don't let 90 days stop at 91st day is continuing to be supportive of your employees, showing up, demonstrating the culture, and everything like that moving forward. So that's the importance of continuing past that 90 days to the 91st day. The 91st day is also where it basically happens. You are starting to drop everything that you did for your own self as an employee. You'd be like, okay, now I don't need to perform myself anymore. All relaxed now, so I can do whatever I want. I can get away with it. I can crack these inappropriate jokes. I can do anything like that. And that also makes you bad too, because it shows the company that you're not doing well either. So it's a big combination of important to getting from day 90 to day 91 the exact same way that you were the entire time when you started.
Yeah, I love that concept. And it feels like a hard-lived experience. Tell us about your professional journey and how did you come up with this concept?
So I came up with this concept when I accepted a job as a manager of one. So basically the entire HR department was one person for this entire office. And basically I was starting HR from scratch. They never had an HR person there before. They just kind of had someone doing like signing forms and all this type of stuff. But for me, I was taking it from the beginning. That's how this concept started, because when I came in on my first day, it was everyone else's 91st day, essentially. And I mentioned that in a book that I write at the end of chapter 1. I said I walked in on my first day, but everyone else's 91st day because it was utter chaos in there. And I realized that I just needed to start over with new files to new policies to new handbook to completely everything completely different using this methodology that I have. And that's how that started there. For me, starting out in HR, I thought when I graduated college, I was going to go into HR and start right away, and I'm the best HR employee ever. But unfortunately, the market was never good. So what I did is I kind of went throughout my career in a way that I feel HR embodies. So, for example, working for an airline, I learned a lot about having to deal with customer service and angry people, working in a restaurant, being super busy, working in auto insurance. These are all things and all cool things I was able to kind of experience that I can now use when I am HR, when I am working as a human resource professional, because I have all these experience of the employee side. So I know exactly what it's like to feel from HR, what to get these communications or these bad HR policies. I was able to feel them myself. And I know that if I'm going to implement a new policy, this is the way to do it because I felt it this way. So it's better that way. Big mix.
It's great that you mentioned like your multiple experiences. I see people coming to the show and some of our guests, some people have sales experience, some people have marketing experience, some people have teaching experience, and kind of bringing that into HR profession really
Mm-hmm.
makes it richer and kind of helps understand people better, make better decisions, understand business better. Do you have any like examples of how that experience actually helps you be a better HR professional?
Yeah, I think because when you are starting out, I'm going to start from a fresh HR professional like myself who's going to this role, being an HR manager for the first time. Being able to experience these, I guess the experience that I went through, I think is definitely very important. I think that it has helped me just because I was able to do every part of HR at once. I was able to have the payroll hat on, and then I was able to have the onboarding hat and the benefits hat. That I was able to get everything everywhere all at once, as that movie is, and be a better HR professional. Because even at my next position after I moved on from this company, I was managing a team of HR people who all did those very tasks that I did. So a special person specifically for benefits, a person specifically for onboarding and recruiting. So I was able to kind of, okay, put that hat on. Okay, I remember I did this and then I did that. I remember hiring people is important, when you do this. So it was really cool to kind of do all that.
Well, you've had those different experiences in payroll and recruitment and onboarding, and you wrote a book about culture. Why culture? Why not, I mean, hire the right people or pay them the right money? Why culture?
I think culture is very important. And I say people and culture. I even put a message in the beginning of the book to my new baby. He's 1 year old. I said, this book is about work, but it's mainly about people. Always choose the people. So that's what I would say is choosing the people is the most important thing when it comes to a company in HR because your people are your workforce. A lot of times the company is just focused on making money, 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 money. We're going to do this and this, make this much money, or I don't want to spend $2,000 on a pool table. I don't want to give my employees 3 weeks off of PTO because that costs me money and I need my employees to work. But people that companies don't realize is that onboarding itself and hiring is very, very, very expensive. Whether you're paying someone on your staff full time or you're paying someone else to do it, thousands and thousands of dollars are spent on employees. And if you're only showing your best self for the 90 days, you're paying that same. Sometimes it takes $20,000 almost to find one specific employee. And if you lose them after those 90 days, then you have another $20,000 and another $20,000. That's why I think people and culture are most important aspect of a company because you need your employees there. You need them to be loyal. You want them to be there for a long time and feel happy coming to work. I always said if I ever owned a company and someone wasn't happy coming to work, that's a reflection on me. I'm doing something wrong. My company's doing something wrong. What can I do to try to convince you to stay or help you stay? Am I not paying fairly? Am I not giving enough paid time off? What am I doing wrong? That's what it means to me why I had to write this book on culture because it's the thing that is often forgotten and it's the most important thing at the exact same time.
It is. I mean, it costs money. Okay, I have so many examples when a company is not investing in its people, in its culture, and it just goes out of business. And like one of the recent examples, there was a, I didn't even heard of that. There was a submersive Titan that went down to explore Titanic wreck and it exploded and killed people. That's a terrible story. And there was a report that actually said that one of the reasons like this tragedy happened was because the company had toxic culture. Like toxic culture kills people.
That's
It's that
clear.
important. So I mean, kudos to you for writing that book. Well, let's talk practice. Like how do you do the right onboarding so that it lasts? It doesn't
Perfect.
finish on 90 days. How do you do that?
So I think it starts on the first screening call, the first interview. is you lay out everything on the table. As much as people want to say, oh, just about the amazing things about the company, I think it's important for an employee to know exactly what they're getting themselves into. For example, when I was interviewed for this specific role when I was HR manager, the director who hired me said, I'm telling you right now, we don't have an HR function. The culture is very toxic here and we need someone to fix it. I think that was very important. It's important to not scare someone off, but show like, when we need you to fix it. And this is the reason why I think you can help us fix it because you have this approach. I like this approach, blah, 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 blah. That's important in itself. When you're doing your interviews, also, I find it very important to include a current employee on that may be on the team. Let's say you're hiring a program coordinator, have other program coordinators on that team kind of interview the prospective employee. I find that very important too, because it gives that opportunity to ask questions. Be like, oh, what's the day in the life like? Is the office nice? What's it like? All I see is this fancy interview room. What's the job like? Was it tough to learn? And it gives the employee opportunity to ask the prospective employee to ask questions as well. So starting off the interview process is important. A fantastic onboarding schedule, not just a week, but entire, I find to be very important too. A lot of times they'll be like, okay, we're just going to sit you in a classroom and have all these trainings for a week and then you're on your own. So I think it's important to have that full on month long thing of check-ins with people, giving them recommendations of who to chat with, who to message with, how to train and all these type of things. I find that extremely important too. And carrying that throughout the onboarding process, checking in. Lunches are super important. Lunch and learns are important, not just the new hire orientation, but kind of have groups, have newsletters, have that featured employee be part of something that maybe not be on the team, have them learn about the company. There's so many things within it that's super important.
The thing I often see with onboarding is that, well, who's responsible for onboarding? I mean, manager is responsible for onboarding, right? So HR can support them with the process, but overall it's manager's responsibility because they know the job, except they don't. I mean, they do know the exact kind of an employee they want to get by the end, but the whole onboarding process might look like a mess to them because so much things they need to learn. How do you manage that, building the right onboarding process where actually manager is responsible, but they can be lost on how to do that?
Yeah, I think it's important to, as an HR professional, is sit down with the manager and build out a custom onboarding plan that works for them. A lot of times companies will will have a onboarding plan that's for the entire company, like, oh, this is how it works for this company, and that's it. But I think it's important is if you have HR have a meeting or two at any point in time, not necessarily for a specific employee, but an onboard program that works for them. So throughout the entire month, what do they need to do? So I would sit down with a manager and be like, what are the important things to learn out of this job? They'll say, okay, they need to learn the C-suite program. They need to learn how to use Microsoft Office and Excel and how to build these charts and all these type of things. So it's important to kind of sit down and work with them, go step by step on how to outline it. I find that super important too, and make it custom for them. Make it in a way that they know exactly how it works and what works for them and what works for HR too, and make sure they're staying within the policy. We're not going to have them be like, okay, go out to the field with their sneakers without on day one when they don't have all the safety equipment. They didn't do the safety trainings yet. That's important. And most important is getting their buy-in. I always say as an HR employee, you need to get leadership buy-in, including your managers that you work with, even though they may not be over you. You got to have them agree to a 30-day period or a training period, however long you want it to be, an onboarding period. It's important to have them agree with you on that. I find that super important too.
Well, the argument I hear a lot is that, well, things are changing so fast. So if we create this program, onboarding program now for this employee, and then in 3 months' time, new employee joins, things will change. What, do we need to sit down again and talk about that again? It takes so much time. How do you respond to that?
I always say, you're the manager. This is your team. You get to choose whichever you'd like to do. As HR, we're mainly there to help them along the path of righteousness, I guess, in HR. But I always say that it's up to you however you want to do it. If you want to make changes, please definitely make changes. You don't have to get approval from HR every time you need it. We're just here to kind of give you this tool. This is the way that works the best. However, we really recommend doing it this way, that way. We get that things change all the time. It's super important that change is occurring. You might use a completely new different system that might take 2 months to learn, or an easier system that might make it easier. So, or new people to work with, or new people moving different teams. So I think just having that basic rough framework on maybe like a shared document, if you want to run it by HR, you'd be like, hey, I want to make these changes to this onboarding plan. What do you think? Use HR as a resource, not necessarily as a permission-based thing.
As HR is a partner to business, do you monitor whether they actually follow that onboarding process or not?
I do. And how I follow it is I often will include a 30, 60, and 90-day self-evaluation for employees and managers. I think the check-ins, if this is within the first 90 days, of course, but I always and I have one that happens after as well. But to determine if it's working or if it's not working, sending out a survey that's just reviewed by HR. So a survey goes out to the manager to do a sit down with their employee, do like a review, and then a survey is sent out to an employee. Well, they'll do a self-evaluation. How are things going? What part of your job do you want to perform better at? What part do you like the best? How's your relationship with your manager? It's not going well by that 90-day review. I know that something's going wrong, that maybe they need to get a little bit more of a boost, because most resignations happen after that 3 months of working, which is 90 days. So if we're seeing a downward trend where they're not feel like they're doing really well, the employees feel like they're completely lost in their work, that's the important that to maybe sit down with that manager and be like, okay, let's work on a new onboarding plan here. I think this is a much better way to do it, and how to do it beyond the 90 days.
Well, I agree. And since you mentioned this attrition rate, like I remember when I was working in the company and there was very high attrition rate. And the things I was monitoring the most is like the first 90 days attrition, the first 6 months, and the first year, because these are the most expensive. And we made a mistake at some point, either hiring the wrong people or making a mistake with the onboarding, and that need to be fixed. So it's on us. Yeah. You mentioned you worked for scale ups and fast scaling, fast growing organizations. What usually breaks down when the company is growing so fast?
Oftentimes, when I see companies go through rapid growth, it's one of two things. It's either that they're most likely a startup company who hit it really big and got a great investment, or the other times it's when an acquisition happens. A different company bought the smaller company. And that causes a lot of panic, both in HR and on the employee management side of things. For one of these companies, I had to do one of these buyouts, I guess, when big gigantic company is coming down and going to eat the small company, and everyone starts to freak out. The employees think they're going to get fired, where there was rumors of a company acquiring this one, and people were basically doing their resumes because they thought they're all going to get laid off because the big bad wolves from the top down are going to come and eat this department, and then they're going to outsource it, and they're going to use their own people for cheaper and all this type of stuff. So I had employees sometimes sitting crying in my office, and no matter how many times that I told them, you're fine, I can guarantee you, and this is after they have formed a good relationship with me, they still didn't believe it. So at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. So I had to show proof of it. So what I did is I held an all hands meeting, where I had everybody stand with me, and I had the current CEO of the company stand in front of the room and tell them himself that your jobs are safe. We are expanding. You aren't going. No one's going anywhere. And it was so helpful for the employees to hear it directly from the owner or the CEO himself, because I can only say so much, management can only say so much, and rumors start swirling all over the place. Getting trust, I think, is the thing that gets lost the most in those rapid growth environments, because they're seeing so many changes happening all over the place. I even did a leadership training session on change and different types of change. This is transitional change. This is transactional change. This is how I was experienced change on my personal story and my personal life and how things have worked. So oftentimes that's exactly what gets lost, is that trust that you have with your current employees, because you're so excited about the big shiny new building you're going to get, or the big shiny new department that's going to come, and how much money is going to have. You forget where you kind of came from. At the end of the day, it's like, when you're hanging with your friends and that new friend gets a new boyfriend or girlfriend, then you never see them again because they're so excited about this new relationship that they have that you forget, what about us? What about our core group? So I see that happen, that get lost a lot, and then forget, like I said, leaving your employees behind. You just got to remember to bring them along with you with the journey and have them lead with you as opposed to behind you.
I love this analogy. I mean, it's really like it. I mean, there was a next interesting project, and then senior leadership team, they just follow, they all into that. Lots of work, lots of excitement, but like with no communication with the core team, with their employees of the organization, rumors start, and it can really cause problems. Well, we started talking about trust. How do you think HR can earn trust with the leadership team to help them understand, like help the CEO understand that he actually needs to go and say something in front of the people, whether it's a good thing or bad thing, or you need to change something in the onboarding process? How do you build that trust with the leadership team?
Yeah, I always say when I'm meeting with leadership, with the CEO or executive board, I remind them, this is your company. You can do what you want. I'm going to give you my recommendations based off of what I have seen. And it's always important to come with proof of evidence of what you have seen. So, for example, was working with the CEO who was very, very money based, like 100% focused on money. He was very aggressive, walked around really quickly, didn't really talk to anybody. And I remember sitting down with him once about an employee relations matter, and he says, this meeting is costing us thousands and thousands of dollars because my time is being wasted talking about this. And I'm like, exactly. We are spending thousands of dollars meeting over this employee relations matter that could have been fixed if we went with this path instead. So moving forward, I think we should have a month-long onboarding program, because now more than a month, month-long, any type of things, any type of program, a new onboarding program that would help prevent this from happening in the first place. And sometimes there are CEOs or executive board members that are very numbers based. So they need to see exactly how much recruiting costs are. Be like, look, to hire Daria for this position, it cost us $20,000, and now she wants to go to somewhere else. We're going to have to spend even more because of inflation. So this is going to be more expensive. So in order to make Daria happy, we should probably give her a raise or more flexibility or a bigger office. That's all she wants, or something like that. It's sometimes the little things. And I think just using their words and helping their analogies. Once when I worked for a medical practice, we had an issue where, someone had a discrimination where an employee discriminated against another. I had to say, hey, I think we might have to terminate this employee because of that. And they didn't understand because they were medical doctors running a practice, so I kind of had to do it in a way that they would understand. I said, you could be the best surgeon in the world who cured cancer, can do, all these heart replacements and things like that. But the one time that you show up drunk to the OR, everything is gone. You'll never go in there again. No matter what you did, it's completely gone. It's called a never do moment. So I said, what this employee did was show up to the OR drunk. That's the same type of analogy, a never do moment. And they were like, wow, that is right. We cannot have her here. Go ahead and proceed with whatever you need to do. So I think it's important to just kind of speak their language and work with them as a partner. That's the most important thing, is partnership, not up down. If the owners of a company or a CEO or a board of executives or directors sees them at the top and you at the bottom, that's never good. If they see you as an equal, that's the most successful company you're going to possibly have.
Yeah. And for that, you need to know your audience, know who you speak to, and speak the language. Well, I know you wrote a book.
Yes.
Tell us about your book.
Of course. So it's a book called The 91st Day. So it's basically follows a new HR manager named Alex, based off of stories that I've experienced, who is establishing an HR function for the first time out of a logistics company. And what happens is, on his first day, whatever was sold to him in the interviews was completely opposite to whatever happened. So basically there was no 90-day period at all. There was nothing, So he, walks in, there's toxic culture. There's a manager who thinks of herself and kind of has her desk right in front and have her employees facing her so she can see the exact, see the employees at all times. And kind of going through a week by week basis. So stories that happen, I have so many stories in there. One where an employee decided to dress up as the Grinch on Christmas and scare another employee, and how that escalated a lot further, where you think it's just a silly prank, but because of all this unsecure and bad culture that happened, this employee feels like they're being bullied, sent another employee to do this. It's causes a lot of chaos. There's a story about how an employee once walked in with a bodyguard and said that she didn't feel safe at work, so she had her own personal bodyguard with her. So it's a very interesting set of things. It's true, I swear. But it's just crazy what happens when you don't have an established culture and you let it off at the 91st day. People go crazy. They feel they can do whatever they want. So it's literally just a lived experience. Be like, I saw this happen. This person used racist language and got off with it and didn't get any punishment or anything like that. So I went to the executive director and I told him, well, now we have to add that to our handbook, because now we have to say in our handbook, yeah, you could use racist language as long as it's said in a joking manner. That doesn't make sense, right? So he's like, you're right. So we changed that. All these changes that are happening, that all hands meeting, how that was able to change things, and how the former manager used to lead these meetings, and how I'm going to exactly do that completely differently. I'm going to make it interactive. We're going to play an episode of The Office. We're going to do some fun things and these to make it not like a yelling session where we're just going over policies and telling people to get off their phones. We're making it more of a thing and trying to convince everyone else that they're leaders. And it ends at my 91st day, where things are going well, because we were able to or Alex's 91st day, because everything is going well. Everyone feels happy. The toxic people are no longer working for the company. There's new leadership from within. So basically, whoever took those managers' position have been in this employee as an employee in this position as an employee before. So it's really super cool to kind of see the transition within the book. And it's not like a how-to guide. It's like more of like a, this is what I'm experiencing guide. So it's like, oh, I saw this. This is my current reaction, and this is what I'm doing to change it because I think it'll work. I'm not sure if it will, but I'm going to try. Let's go see. As opposed to when you're doing HR, you must first establish a protocol. That's good. Those can be kind of boring sometimes. So.
It's always working like that because you need to know the story behind the company, and then you can come up with solution, like the stories you're sharing and how you came up with the solutions to them.
Of course, and the book necessarily isn't just for HR folk. It's for managers too, to kind of see what goes on behind that HR door. HR has this perspective of being the principal's office, where the people that are going to fire people, get you in trouble, and yell at you for everything. What actually goes on inside that office? Or sometimes a manager will see an employee talk to HR and be like, "What are they talking about? Are they talking about me?" Sometimes they're just talking about onboarding, or they're just talking about a benefit. That's it. They just want to know when their benefits start. So it's just cool to get that perspective and see what HR does and how important it is, even for executives to see, like, what does my HR person do? Or if I don't want to ask them, maybe I'll read this book and maybe I can see what goes on behind the scenes and see how we're not here to cause trouble and we're not here to waste money of company resources and waste money. We're here to help you make money because it make the company make money because of these very reasons.
Cool. Amazing. Well, thank you, Nate. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed talking to you. And thanks for sharing those stories. The bodyguard story is just crazy. But that's how you learn. Yeah, I mean, to all our listeners, read the book with more stories. I have one final question for you. And this question is, if you had a magic wand and could solve any of like HR professional challenges that are out there, what would that be?
So I would say two things. One, payroll, because I don't think HR should do payroll. That is crazy. It is math. I am not an accountant. I'm not a mathematician. I always was terrible at math. And then having to do payroll is crazy. So I think if we can have an automatic payroll button, I'll automatically get it right and don't have to worry about it. If I do have the function, that's the first part. But the most important thing I feel is what we talked about this entire episode, which is trust. If I could just convince or wave a wand and convince an executive team that HR is not here because you need it, that they feel they're required to have it to check a box, is that we're here to have a good relationship and for you to trust us. I think it's so important. And anytime I do interview for a new job, that if I'm taking a job, I always say, the one thing I need from you is your trust. If I don't have your trust, I can't do anything. I need you to trust me that what I'm saying is correct. What I'm trusting you, what I'm saying is a good thing, and that we come from a good place. We're not here to make your life easier, not here to make your life worse. We're here to make your life easier. Use HR as your shield. Use HR as your partner in crime. We both have a sword attacking whatever the problem is. I would love for this to have auto trust.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, trust is everything. Like when you have trust, like managers do not worry what the employee talk to each other. They are not worried when HR comes to them to have a conversation. Like everyone feels that it's a mutual support. We're there to support each other's growth and organizational growth. Well, thank you so much, Nate. It was an amazing conversation. How people can reach out to you, how people can find you and your book.
Perfect. So the best way to do it is to go on my website, www.the91stday.com. It has links to my book. It has an analysis of the book, some other articles and things like that. But you can buy a Kindle version on Amazon and a hardcover on Barnes & Noble. But I definitely recommend you going to the website. If you want to contact me for any HR advice or anything like that, if you want to learn how to build a proper resume, feel free to let me know. There's a contact form in there. I reach out to everybody just because I do this for fun. At the end of the day, I'm not doing it to make a profit. I'm doing this to have fun and to kind of share my methods with other people.
Amazing. Well, thanks. But that's why we're here in this profession to help people. And that's why helping people grow, helping organization grow is what drives most HR professionals.
I found your podcast previously before, so it was really cool when I drive the long commutes. So I was very happy when we were able to get in touch. So definitely listen to the Built by People Leaders podcast. It's a good way to listen to something on the way to work.
Thank you, Nate. And to all our listeners, if you listen to the end of this episode, thank you. If you like this show, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for the next episodes. Bye.